I supported my family for many years, but when I was fired they banned me from Thanksgiving. We don't need losers at the party. So I went on a trip, and the next morning they started calling me in a panic because I never thought I'd be one of those people who got used as an ATM by their own family. But looking back, that's exactly what happened to me. My name is Kelly. I'm 34 years old, and until recently, I was a key account manager at Sport Nutri, a sports nutrition company. I was good at my job, really good. I worked my ass off and built strong relationships with our biggest clients. My boss, Derek, the CEO, valued my work and paid me accordingly. 5 years ago, Mom called me about her medical bills. Dad's insurance wasn't covering everything for her back surgery, and they were drowning in debt. Of course, I helped. They're my parents. I had the money, and they needed it. "Kelly, I don't know what we'd do without you," Mom said, crying when I transferred the money. But it didn't stop there. A few months later, they needed help with their mortgage payment, then utilities, then car repairs. "Just until we get back on our feet," Dad promised. I believed him. I always believed them. Then my sister Jen started asking too. First it was just fixing her car when it broke down. "Please, Cal, Mark's paycheck doesn't come until next week, and I need to get the kids to school," she begged. Then it was paying for Tyler's hockey club, then helping with their rent. "You have no idea how much this means," Jen would say. "You're literally saving us." I felt good about it, you know? I was making 6 figures, had money in the bank, and could help the people I loved. When I went on vacation, I'd take Mom and Dad, or Jen and her family. Sometimes I'd foot the bill for all of us to go somewhere nice together. Those vacations were some of my happiest memories. Last Christmas, we all went to Florida. I paid for the whole thing: flights, beach house, even a fancy dinner on Christmas Eve. Mom raised her glass and said to Kelly, "The most generous daughter anyone could ask for." Everyone clinked glasses. I felt so loved. What a joke that was. A month ago, everything changed. I was at work when Derek called me into his office. His face was grim. "Kelly, I need to tell you something before you hear it from someone else," he said. "My father is removing me as CEO. He's putting my younger brother Jason in charge." My stomach dropped. Derek was the reason I thrived at Sport Nutri. We worked well together. "What does this mean for me?" I asked. "I don't know," he said honestly, "but Jason has never liked how much I pay you." 2 days later, there was a shareholders meeting. Derek was out. Jason was in. And the very next day, I got called into the new CEO's office. "Kelly, I'll be direct," Jason said, not even offering me a seat. "I'm bringing in my own team. You're terminated, effective 2 weeks from today." I kept my composure, thanked him for the notice, and walked out. I wasn't worried about money immediately. I had enough savings to last a year without work. But I knew one thing: I couldn't keep supporting my family the way I had been. After I got my severance package, I drove straight to my parents' house. It was a Wednesday evening. I knew Jen and her family would be there for their weekly dinner. I didn't call ahead. I wanted to see their genuine reaction. When I walked in, they all looked up from the table in surprise. "Kelly, what are you doing here?" Mom asked. "Shouldn't you be at work?" I took a deep breath and sat down at the empty chair. I got fired. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom and Dad exchanged glances with Jen and Mark. Nobody said anything for what felt like forever. Finally, Mom spoke. "Oh, Kelly, that's terrible news. We were counting on your help with the property taxes next month. Not, I'm sorry, not are you okay? Just what they were counting on me for. I won't be able to help anymore," I said, not like before. "I need to be careful with my money until I find a new job." Jen's face darkened. "What about Tyler's hockey? And the car needs new brakes. You said you'd pay for those." I stared at her, stunned by her tone. "Jen, I just lost my job. I can't." "This is so inconsiderate," she snapped, standing up. "We've been planning our budget with your help in mind. Now what are we supposed to do?" Mark started gathering the kids. Jen grabbed her purse. They left without saying goodbye. I turned to my parents, hoping for some support or understanding. But Mom just rubbed her temples. "I have a headache," she announced, and left the room. Dad stayed at the table, studying his plate. "How long until you find another good job?" he asked without looking at me. I don't know. Maybe 6 months? It's hard to find something at the same level. He pushed his chair back and stood up. Your mother and I need to talk. Let yourself out. And he left me sitting alone at the table. I sat there for 5 minutes, stunned by what had just happened. Then I drove home in silence, trying to process that my family cared more about my wallet than my well-being. 3 weeks passed since that awful dinner. I cut off all the automatic transfers to my parents' and Jen's accounts and sent them all a simple text. Due to my current financial situation, I can no longer provide financial support. I wish you all the best. Cold, maybe. But I was still hurt. Nobody responded, not one of them. Before losing my job, my phone would buzz constantly with calls and texts from them. Mom checking if I could help with the electric bill that was higher than expected. Dad asking if I'd mind covering the cost of his golf club membership renewal. Jen sending links to things she wanted for the kids with messages like, Tyler would love this for his birthday if his awesome aunt wanted to spoil him. There was radio silence now. I tried to look on the bright side. For the first time in years, I had nothing but free time. No stressful client meetings or late-night email chains. No family drama or financial requests to juggle. Just me, figuring out what I wanted. I created a budget spreadsheet, calculating how long my savings would last. Without supporting 3 additional households, my money could stretch much further than I thought. I could actually take some time to breathe before diving into another high-stress job. My apartment felt quiet. Too quiet sometimes. I was used to being needed, to my phone constantly demanding attention. But I forced myself to enjoy the peace. This is what normal people feel like, I told myself, as I sipped coffee on my balcony one morning, watching the sunrise. This is what it's like when you're not everybody's solution to everything. As the days passed, I started to wonder if anyone would reach out just to check on me. They didn't. Thanksgiving was approaching, and I realized I hadn't heard a word about plans. For the past 5 years, I'd hosted at my place, or brought most of the food to my parents' house. Last year, I'd spent over $300 on groceries and cooked for 2 days straight while everyone else helped by drinking wine and getting in my way. A week before the holiday, I finally broke down and called Mom. She didn't answer the first time, or the second, or the third or fourth. On the 5th try, she picked up with an annoyed, "What, Kelly?" "Hi, Mom," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "I was just wondering about Thanksgiving plans. Should I make my usual cranberry sauce and sweet potato casserole?" There was a long pause. "We've decided to do things differently this year," she said, her voice flat and cold. "Your father, Jen, and I discussed it. We think it's best if you don't join us this year." My heart stopped. "Why? Kelly?" She sighed, like I was a dense child. "We don't need losers at our holiday table. People without jobs or anything to contribute." The word losers hit me like a slap, my own mother. "So when I was paying for everything, you were happy to have me around," I said, my voice shaking. "But now that I can't bankroll everyone, I'm not welcome anymore?" She didn't even try to deny it. "You won't be welcome at our house, don't come." Then she hung up. I sat on my couch, phone in hand, completely stunned. Tears rolled down my face as the reality hit me. They had never loved me. They had loved what I could do for them. All those smiles, those thank you hugs, those toasts to my generosity, it was all fake. A performance to keep the money flowing. I cried until my eyes burned and my throat hurt. Then I got angry. Really angry. "Screw them," I said out loud to my empty apartment. "Screw all of them." I grabbed my laptop and did something I hadn't done in years. I booked a vacation just for me. Not for my parents, not for Jen and her family. Just for me. Mexico, 5-star resort, beachfront suite, the works. It cost a fortune, but I didn't care. I'd spent the last 5 years funding everyone else's happiness while putting my own on hold, not anymore. As I confirmed the booking, my phone rang. I almost ignored it, assuming it was Mom or Jen calling to berate me further. But it was Derek, my old boss. "Kelly," he said when I answered, "how are you holding up?" "Been better," I admitted. "Your brother's quite the charmer." Derek laughed. "Yeah. He's always been a joy. Listen, I'm calling because I've got news. I've started my own company, Sportmax Nutrition, direct competitor to my father's business." "Good for you," I said, genuinely happy for him. Derek was smart and fair. He deserved success. I want you to join me, he continued, as CEO. I almost dropped my phone. CEO? Derek, that's exactly what you deserve, he cut in. You know this industry inside and out. The clients trust you. And I trust you completely. Say yes. My mind raced. CEO. A higher salary than I'd ever had. Actual authority to make decisions. When do you need me to start? I asked. As soon as possible, but I'm going to Mexico for Thanksgiving week, I interrupted. I need this vacation. I'll start when I get back. Derek laughed. Perfect. Take the time. You deserve it. We'll celebrate your new position when you return. After we hung up, I couldn't stop smiling. From fired to CEO in less than a month. Life was funny sometimes. Thanksgiving Day arrived, and I boarded my flight to Cancun. As the plane took off, I felt lighter than I had in years. No family drama, no cooking for ungrateful people. Just me, the beach, and a fresh start waiting when I returned. I checked into my hotel, changed into a sundress, and ordered champagne. When it arrived, I took a selfie with the bottle, the ocean visible through the window behind me. I posted it to Instagram with the caption, celebrating my new position as CEO of Sportmax Nutrition. I knew Jen followed my Instagram. I knew she'd see it. I knew they'd all find out. I took a sip of champagne and smiled. Let the calls begin. It took exactly 2 hours after posting that Instagram photo from my phone to start blowing up. I was lying on the beach, soaking up the sun and enjoying my first real moment of peace in years, when my phone started vibrating like crazy. First came a sweet text from Jen. Happy Thanksgiving, sis. Hope you're having a great time. Miss you tons. The same sister who'd practically spat in my face when I told her I couldn't pay for her kids' hockey anymore. The same sister who'd agreed I shouldn't come to Thanksgiving because I was a loser. I ignored it. Then came calls. Mom, Dad, Jen, Mom again, Mark, which was weird because Mark never called me Mom again. After about 10 missed calls, I finally picked up when Mom called for what must have been the 5th time. Kelly, sweetie. Her voice was syrupy sweet. We've been trying to reach you. I noticed, I said flatly, watching the waves roll in. We were just talking about how much we miss you, she continued. When you get back from your trip, you should come over for dinner. We'd love to see you. I sat up on my beach chair. That's interesting, Mom. A week ago, you told me I wasn't welcome in your house because I'm a loser without a job. Oh, honey, you misunderstood, she said quickly. We were just upset. You know how your father gets? We didn't mean any of that. I understood perfectly, I replied. What's changed? Could it be that I'm suddenly employable again? Or more specifically, that I'm suddenly a CEO with a big salary again? There was a pause, and then I heard rustling as someone grabbed the phone from my mother. Kelly, it's Jen. My sister's voice came through, equally sweet. Don't listen to Mom. She's terrible at apologizing. Look, we all overreacted. We're family, and families fight sometimes, right? But we're so happy about your new job. Congratulations. I laughed out loud, causing a couple nearby to glance over at me. Thanks, Jen. I'm curious though, what exactly are you happy about? That I got a great job, or that you think the money train is about to start running again? Kelly, that's not fair, she said, but her voice wavered. I mean, we are hoping you'll be in a position to help us out again. The apartment needs some urgent repairs, and Mark has a dental issue that insurance won't fully cover. And there it was, the truth. Let me be very clear, I said, my voice level and calm. I will never, and I mean never, give any of you another cent. Not for repairs, not for dental work, not for mortgages or hockey clubs or vacations or anything else. That part of our relationship is over. I heard gasps and then shouting as the phone seemed to be passed around. Dad was yelling about ingratitude. Mom was crying about how they'd raised such a selfish daughter. Jen was screaming that her kids would suffer because of me. I ended the call and turned off my phone. Then I ordered a margarita from the beach bar and went for a swim in the crystal clear water. For the rest of my vacation, I kept my phone off. I got massages at the resort spa. I went snorkeling and saw colorful fish darting between coral reefs. I ate incredible food and drank top-shelf tequila. I read books by the pool and took long walks on the beach at sunset. It was the best week of my life. On my last day, I finally turned my phone back on. There were 47 missed calls and 31 text messages. Most were from my family, with a few from Derek checking in about work stuff. I opened one text from my mother. "Kelly, please call us back. We need your help. Dad's blood pressure is up because of the stress of not being able to pay bills." Then one from Jen. "The landlord is threatening to evict us if we're late on rent again. Please, Cal. We need you." And another. "Mark's tooth is getting worse. The kids keep asking why Aunt Kelly doesn't love them anymore." I scrolled through message after message, each one more desperate than the last. Each one mentioning money, bills, or financial problems. Not a single one asking how I was doing or if I was enjoying my trip. I didn't respond to any of them. I packed my bags, checked out of the resort, and flew home. The Monday after Thanksgiving, I walked into Sportmax Nutrition for my first day as CEO. Derek met me in the lobby with a big smile and a hug. "Ready to change the industry?" he asked. "More than ready," I replied. He gave me a tour of the office, smaller than Sport Nutri's but modern and bright, and introduced me to the team he'd assembled. Many were former colleagues who'd also been let go when Jason took over. They greeted me with genuine warmth and excitement. My office had floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the city skyline. On my desk was a nameplate, Kelly Mitchell, Chief Executive Officer. A bottle of champagne sat in an ice bucket with a note from Derek to New Beginnings. I got to work immediately. We had to move fast to compete with Sport Nutri, and I knew exactly which clients to contact first. By the end of the day, I'd scheduled meetings with 3 major accounts that I knew were unhappy with Jason's leadership. For the next several weeks, I threw myself into building the company. I worked long hours, but for the first time in my career, I was working for myself, for my future, not to support everyone else. It felt amazing. I changed my number and email address to avoid my family's constant messages. I thought I'd finally have some peace. But one evening, about a month after I started at Sportmax, I was returning home after a long day. As I pulled into my driveway and got out of my car, I noticed 3 figures standing by my entrance: Mom, Dad, Jen. My stomach dropped. I considered getting back in my car and driving away, but they'd already spotted me. "Kelly." Mom stepped forward finally. "We've been trying to reach you for weeks." "I know," I said, keeping my distance. I didn't want to be reached. "This has gone far enough," Dad said sternly, like he was scolding a teenager. "You're being childish and selfish?" Jen nodded. "We're family, Kelly. Family helps each other." I looked at their faces, these people who had said they didn't want a loser at their Thanksgiving table, who only contacted me again when they thought I had money, who had never once in all these weeks asked how I was doing. "No," I said firmly. "This ends now. I don't want to see any of you or hear from any of you again. If you come to my home again, I'll call the police." Mom's face crumpled and she started to cry. "How can you say that to your own mother? After everything we've done for you?" Jen joined in, tears streaming down her face. "You're abandoning us. How are we supposed to manage without you?" "The same way I managed without your support when I lost my job," I replied coldly. "Figure it out." I walked past them, went inside my house, and locked the door. Through the window, I could see them standing in the driveway watching me. 6 months have passed since I stood on my doorstep and cut my family out of my life for good. 6 months of peace. 6 months of building something for myself. Sportmax is thriving. We've already captured 15% of the market share that Sport Nutri once dominated. Turns out clients prefer working with people who actually care about their needs, rather than a CEO who got his position through nepotism. Derek and I make a good team. He handles the big picture vision and investor relations, while I run the day-to-day operations and maintain client relationships. Our staff has grown from 12 to 38, and we just leased a 2nd floor in our office building. Last week, we got word that Jason, Derek's brother, was fired by their father. Apparently, the company has been bleeding clients and money since he took over. I'd feel bad if he hadn't been such an asshole when he fired me. "You dodged a bullet," Derek told me over lunch. "The company's a mess now." "I didn't dodge a bullet," I replied. "I caught one and built something better." He raised his glass to that. "My cousin Emma called me last month. We were never particularly close, but she heard through the family grapevine what happened with my parents and Jen. I always thought they took advantage of you," she said. The way they'd brag about the vacations you paid for, the bills you covered. It never sat right with me. From Emma, I learned that my parents are struggling with their mortgage. Dad had to come out of semi-retirement to work full-time again. Jen and Mark had to downsize to a smaller apartment, and Tyler had to quit the hockey club. They all blame me, of course. According to Emma, they tell everyone who'll listen that I abandoned them, that I turned my back on family when they needed me most. They conveniently leave out the part where they called me a loser and uninvited me from Thanksgiving when I lost my job. I appreciate Emma reaching out, but honestly, I don't care what they're saying anymore. I don't care if they're struggling. I don't care if they hate me. I'm free. For the first time in my adult life, every dollar I earn is mine. Every decision I make is for me. Every vacation I take is because I want to go there, not because I'm paying for everyone else to have a good time. Last month I took a weekend trip to a spa resort upstate. Just me, a stack of books, and absolute tranquility. I got a deep tissue massage and spent hours in the sauna, letting the stress melt away. I slept for 10 hours straight and woke up feeling more rested than I had in years. No one called me asking for money. No one texted with an emergency that required my financial intervention. No one made me feel guilty for enjoying myself. I bought a new car too, nothing flashy, just a reliable SUV that I've always wanted. I didn't have to consider whether buying it would mean I couldn't help Mom with her medical bills or Jen with her rent. I just bought it because I wanted it, and I could afford it. My new place is smaller than my old apartment, but in a better neighborhood. It has a little garden where I've started growing herbs and flowers. On Sunday mornings, I sit out there with a cup of coffee and just breathe. The silence is healing. Sometimes I wonder if I should feel guilty. They're my family after all. But then I remember how quickly their love evaporated when I couldn't financially support them anymore. I remember my mother's cold voice saying they didn't need losers at their Thanksgiving table. I remember how not one of them asked if I was okay when I lost my job. That wasn't love. That was exploitation. Last week, I got a letter from Jen. Actual snail mail since I blocked them everywhere else. I recognized her handwriting on the envelope, and almost threw it away unopened. But curiosity got the better of me. It was 8 pages of guilt-tripping. How Tyler had to quit hockey and cried for days. How her younger son needed braces they couldn't afford. How they were behind on rent again. How Mark was working double shifts. How Mom's health was deteriorating from the stress. At the end she wrote, "We're family, Kelly, no matter what. Families forgive. Families help each other. Please find it in your heart to help us again." Not once in those 8 pages did she apologize for how they treated me. Not once did she acknowledge that they only reached out when they thought I had money again. Not once did she express any genuine interest in my life or well-being. I tore the letter into tiny pieces and tossed it in the recycling bin. My therapist, yes, I finally started seeing one, says I'm not responsible for my family's financial decisions. She says they're adults who made choices and now have to live with the consequences, just like everyone else. She says my only responsibility is to myself and my own healing. She's right. I know she's right. But sometimes in the quiet moments, I still feel the ghost of that obligation, that sense that I should be doing more, giving more, sacrificing more. It's fading with time, but it's still there. Yesterday, I ran into Mark's sister at the grocery store. She gave me a cold look and turned her cart around to avoid me. I guess they've told their extended family their version of events. Poor them, abandoned by selfish, heartless me. Let them think what they want. The people who matter know the truth. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd never lost that job at Sport Nutri. Would I have continued supporting them indefinitely? Would I have ever seen them for who they really were? Would I have spent my entire life being their personal ATM? I don't know, but in a strange way, getting fired was the best thing that ever happened to me. It showed me the truth. It forced me to break free. It led me to where I am now, successful, independent, and finally living for myself. They say blood is thicker than water, but sometimes blood can drown you if you let it. I chose not to drown. I chose myself, and I've never been happier. My sister got pregnant by my husband, and demands that I get out of the house because she's in charge here now. So I laughed and said that I own this house and other property. Her reaction is priceless. I never thought I'd own my dream house but here I was. standing in front of a beautiful two-story colonial with a wraparound porch. My name is Robin Mitchell, and I've worked my ass off to get here. After 5 years as an investment manager at Sterling & Associates, I finally had enough saved up for a substantial down payment. "This is it, Derek," I said to my husband, squeezing his hand as we stood in the driveway. "What do you think?" Derek smiled, his brown eyes crinkling at the corners. "It's perfect, babe. You did good." That's one of the things I loved about Derek. He was always supportive of my career and never seemed threatened by my success. When I told him I wanted to buy the house with my own money and put it in my name, he didn't even flinch. "You earned it," he said simply. "Besides, I'm saving up for our future kids' college funds. We're a team, right?" I remember hugging him tight that day, thinking how lucky I was to have such an understanding partner. Most guys I knew would have thrown a fit about their wife buying a house, but not Derek. He worked as a high school teacher, and while his salary wasn't anywhere near what I made, he never complained or acted jealous. The day we moved in, I couldn't stop smiling. The house was everything I'd dreamed of: 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a gourmet kitchen, and a backyard perfect for future barbecues and kids' birthday parties. I'd made sure to put down enough money so the monthly mortgage payments wouldn't strain us too much. Being an investment manager had taught me the importance of living within our means. "You know what we should do," Derek said as we unpacked boxes in the kitchen. "We should have dinner with my parents this weekend. They'll want to see pictures of the house." "That's a great idea," I agreed, unwrapping our wedding china. "We should visit my family too." That evening, as Derek and I sat on our new porch swing watching the sunset, everything seemed perfect. We talked about our plans for the house, how we'd decorate each room, where we'd plant a garden in the spring, which bedroom would become the nursery when we started our family. Later that night, as I lay in bed listening to Derek's steady breathing beside me, I felt completely at peace. I'd achieved my dream of owning a beautiful home, I had a loving husband, and our future seemed bright with possibility. I drifted off to sleep thinking about how perfect everything was. That first dinner with Derek's parents was supposed to be a simple celebration of our new home. Martha and George had always been kind to me, treating me like their own daughter since Derek and I started dating 5 years ago. They lived in a modest ranch-style house across town, and Martha had prepared her famous pot roast for the occasion. "So, tell us all about the house," Martha exclaimed as she passed the mashed potatoes. Her gray hair was pulled back in its usual meat bun, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I opened my mouth to answer, but Derek beat me to it. "Actually, I wanted to surprise you guys," he said, his voice filled with pride. "I bought us this amazing house, 4 bedrooms, beautiful backyard. You're going to love it when you see it." I nearly choked on my water. Derek squeezed my hand under the table, his eyes pleading with me to stay quiet. I felt my chest tighten, but I forced a smile and stayed silent. "Oh, Derek." Martha clasped her hands together. "That's wonderful. Isn't it wonderful, George?" George beamed at his son. "That's my boy. Always knew you'd do well for yourself." He turned to me. "You've got yourself quite a generous husband here, Robin. Not many young men these days can afford to buy a house like that." I nodded mechanically, pushing food around my plate. The pot roast that had smelled so delicious minutes ago now felt like lead in my stomach. The rest of dinner passed in a blur of lies, Derek describing how he'd saved up for the down payment, his parents praising his financial responsibility, and me sitting there feeling like I was in some bizarre alternate reality. The drive home was silent until we pulled into our driveway that my money had bought. "What the hell was that?" I demanded as soon as we got inside. Derek ran his hands through his dark hair, a nervous habit I'd noticed early in our relationship. "I'm sorry, Robin. You know my dad, he's old school. He'd never understand a man living in a house his wife bought. It would kill him and my reputation, your reputation." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Please, Robin," he begged. "Can we just let people think I bought the house? It doesn't hurt anyone, and it makes things easier for everyone." I shook my head, thinking how childish this whole thing was, but looking at his pleading face, I didn't have the heart to argue. "Fine," I sighed. "Whatever makes you happy." A week later, we were sitting in my parents' living room, and history repeated itself. My mom and dad were there, along with my younger sister Emma, who was visiting from her apartment downtown. Emma and I had always been close, despite being different as night and day. While I was the practical one who went into finance, she was the free spirit who jumped from job to job, trying to find herself. "We bought a house," Derek announced proudly. "Well, I did, wanted to give Robin the home she deserves." I watched my family's reactions like I was watching a movie. Mom and Dad were beaming, congratulating Derek on his success. But it was Emma's face that caught my attention. She smiled and offered her congratulations, but I knew my sister too well to miss the flash of jealousy in her eyes. She'd always wanted the perfect house, the perfect life, and here I was, living her dream, or so she thought. 2 weeks after the family dinners, I threw a housewarming party. I'd spent days preparing everything, setting up the new furniture, hanging artwork, and making sure every room looked perfect. The house was filled with the smell of appetizers and the sound of laughter as our friends and family arrived. "Let me give you the grand tour," Derek announced to the group, puffing out his chest like a proud peacock. "Wait until you see what I picked out for the master bathroom." I almost snorted into my wine glass. The master bathroom he was so proud of? I'd chosen every tile, every fixture, and even that fancy rainfall showerhead he loved so much. But there he was, leading our guests from room to room, talking about his vision for the house, and how hard he'd worked to afford it all. The party was a success, and life settled into a comfortable routine. Derek and I both worked during the day, came home to our beautiful house in the evening, and spent weekends making it more and more like home. Everything was perfect, until exactly 6 months after the housewarming party. I was enjoying a quiet Sunday afternoon when the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Emma standing there, her mascara running down her cheeks and her shoulders shaking with sobs. "Emma, what's wrong?" I pulled her inside, genuinely concerned. My sister wasn't the type to cry easily. "They cut my hours at work," she choked out, collapsing onto our couch. "I'm barely making part-time now, and my rent." She dissolved into fresh tears. I sat beside her, rubbing her back like I used to when we were kids, and she'd had a nightmare. "How bad is it?" "I can't afford my apartment anymore, Robin. I need a place to stay." She looked up at me with those big brown eyes we'd both inherited from our mom. "Can I stay here, just until I figure something out?" I hesitated. "What about Mom and Dad's place? They have that spare room. Their house is on the other side of town," Emma protested, wiping her eyes. "It would take me forever to get to work from there. Your place is perfect, it's close to everything, and you have all these empty bedrooms." "I don't know, Emma. Let me think about it." She nodded reluctantly, and I promised to call her later. Not 10 minutes after she left, my phone rang. It was Mom. "Robin, your sister just called me crying," she said without preamble. "You have to let her stay with you. She's family." That evening, I discussed it with Derek over dinner. "Emma needs a place to stay," I explained, pushing my pasta around my plate. "She's in a tough spot with work, and she should stay with us," Derek said immediately. "We have the room, and she's family. It'll be fun having her around." I looked at him in surprise. Derek had always gotten along well with Emma, but I hadn't expected him to be so enthusiastic about having a house guest. A few days later, Emma moved in. I helped her set up in one of the spare bedrooms, the one with the best morning light that I'd been planning to turn into a home office. The first few weeks weren't bad at all. In fact, they were surprisingly pleasant. I'd come home from a long day at the investment firm to find dinner on the table, not just takeout or simple pasta, but real, home-cooked meals. The house was spotless, laundry was always done, and Emma seemed genuinely happy to help. But then things started to change. It was subtle at first, so subtle that I wondered if I was imagining it. "Here's your coffee, Derek," Emma would say at breakfast, setting down his mug with a flourish. "Black with just a hint of sugar, exactly how you like it. Robin always makes it too sweet, doesn't she?" Or she'd be folding laundry and comment, "I noticed your shirts were always wrinkled before, Derek. A little extra care makes such a difference, don't you think?" I tried to ignore it, but the constant comparisons were getting under my skin. One evening, after a particularly pointed comment about how she'd finally gotten the kitchen properly organized, I pulled her aside. "Emma, can we talk?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level. "These comments you're making." She looked at me with wide, innocent eyes. "What comments?" "About being a better hostess? About how much better the house is since you moved in?" Emma laughed, waving her hand dismissively. "Oh my God, Robin, you're being so sensitive. I'm just joking around. Don't tell me you're jealous of your little sister doing some housework." But it wasn't just the comments. 2 weeks later, I came home from work to find Emma in the kitchen, wearing what could barely be called clothing, a sheer tank top and tiny shorts that left little to the imagination. Derek was sitting at the counter, ostensibly working on his laptop, but his eyes kept drifting up. "Emma," I hissed, pulling her into the hallway, "what are you wearing?" "It's hot in here," she protested, but her smirk said otherwise. "Go change now." She rolled her eyes but complied, switching into her regular loungewear. Later that night, as Derek and I were getting ready for bed, he brought it up. Don't you think you were a bit harsh with Emma earlier? He asked, climbing into bed. She's just comfortable around family. I stared at him. She was practically naked. You're exaggerating. Besides, it's her home too now. His words hit me like a slap. Her home? When had that happened? The next morning I confronted Emma over breakfast. Have you started looking for apartments yet? I asked directly. Her face crumpled immediately. Robin, I'm trying, but I can barely save anything with my reduced hours. Everything's so expensive. She doesn't have to move, Derek interrupted, not looking up from his phone. We've got plenty of room, and it's nice having her here. The three of us work well together. I looked between my husband and my sister, him casually defending her presence in my house, her with that subtle smile playing at the corners of her mouth, and felt a chill run down my spine. The Anderson deal was huge, potentially the biggest investment contract of my career. When my boss told me I needed to fly to Phoenix to meet with them personally, I knew it was important to nail this. I'll be gone for 3 days, I told Derek and Emma over dinner the night before my flight. The negotiations might take a while. The meetings in Phoenix went better than I could have imagined. Mr. Anderson was impressed with my presentation and agreed to all our terms without the usual back and forth I'd expected. By the end of the second day, we were signing papers. You've got quite a future ahead of you, Mrs. Mitchell, he said as we shook hands. Sterling and Associates is lucky to have you. I called the airline and managed to get an earlier flight home. Wouldn't Derek be proud? This deal would mean a significant bonus, maybe enough to pay off a big chunk of the mortgage early. The taxi dropped me off at our house around 8 p.m. The lights were on upstairs and I could see Derek's car in the driveway. I smiled, thinking about surprising them with the good news. I unlocked the front door quietly, my heels clicking softly on the hardwood floors. There were wine glasses on the coffee table, 2 of them, and something that looked like Emma's blouse draped over the banister. My stomach lurched as I climbed the stairs. I could hear music playing faintly from our bedroom, and soft voices. I pushed open the door. Time seemed to stop. The scene before me burned itself into my brain, Derek and Emma in our bed, tangled in the sheets I'd picked out when we first moved in. They didn't notice me at first, too wrapped up in each other. Then Emma saw me and smiled, actually smiled. Robin. Derek scrambled to cover himself. This isn't, I can explain. Emma stretched lazily and got up, not bothering to cover herself. Oh, don't bother explaining, Derek. She started collecting her clothes from the floor. She was bound to find out eventually. I stood frozen in the doorway, my hands shaking. How long? My voice sounded strange, distant. A few weeks now, Emma said casually, pulling on her clothes. We're in love, aren't we, Derek? Derek looked like he might be sick. Oh, and there's one more thing, Emma added, her hand drifting to her stomach. I'm pregnant. Found out a few days ago. Derek's head snapped up, his face going pale. Clearly this was news to him too. Get out, I whispered, then louder. Both of you, get out of my house. Emma laughed, actually laughed. Your house? Oh, honey, I think you're confused. She turned to me with a vicious smile. This is Derek's house. He bought it, remember? You have 1 hour to pack your things and leave. I stood there, staring at my sister as the reality of the situation hit me. She had believed the lie. All this time she thought she was stealing a wealthy man and his house. She had no idea that everything, every single thing around us was mine. I couldn't help it, I started laughing. The sound bubbled up from somewhere deep inside me, slightly hysterical but unstoppable. Emma's face twisted in confusion. What's so funny? You're being kicked out of your home and you're laughing? I wiped tears from my eyes, still chuckling. Oh, Emma. Sweet, delusional Emma, this house, the one you think you're going to live in with my cheating husband? It's mine. Every brick, every tile, every piece of furniture, I bought it all. You're lying, Emma spat, but I could see uncertainty creeping into her eyes. The Mercedes Derek drives? Also mine. I bought it last year because he said his old car wasn't professional enough for a teacher. I turned to Derek. Tell her the truth. Derek seemed to shrink under Emma's fierce gaze. It's true, he mumbled, staring at the floor. Everything belongs to Robin. I just told everyone I bought it because I wanted to look successful. The color drained from Emma's face. She grabbed one of our decorative pillows, the ones I'd spent hours picking out, and started hitting Derek with it. You liar, you pathetic, worthless liar. Both of you stop, I said, my voice cutting through Emma's screams and Derek's attempts to defend himself. I'm done with this circus. You have 1 hour to pack your things and get out of my house. But Derek started. Don't worry about the divorce papers, I interrupted. I'll have them sent to your parents' house. Emma's demeanor changed instantly. The rage disappeared, replaced by that manipulative sweetness I'd grown so familiar with. Robin, you can't kick me out. I'm your sister, your pregnant sister. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem. I checked my watch. 55 minutes left. If you're not gone by then, I'm calling the police. I turned and walked downstairs to the kitchen, leaving them scrambling to gather their things. My hands were steady as I made myself a coffee with the fancy machine I bought last Christmas. I sat at the kitchen island, sipping slowly, listening to the chaos upstairs. My phone rang 10 minutes later. Mom's name flashed on the screen. How dare you? She screeched before I could even say hello. Kicking your pregnant sister out onto the street? What kind of monster are you? She seduced my husband, I said flatly. They've been having an affair for weeks. And when I caught them, she tried to kick me out of my house. There was a brief silence, then, well, maybe you should let them have the house. You're successful. You can afford to rent an apartment. Emma's pregnant now. She needs stability. It would be the kind thing to do, letting them have the house. I sat there, stunned by my mother's words. I don't want to have this conversation, I said, my voice ice cold. In fact, I don't want to talk to you at all right now. I hung up before she could respond, staring at my reflection in the dark window. I barely recognized myself, but maybe that was a good thing. Maybe it was time to become someone new, someone stronger. The hour passed both quickly and painfully slowly. Doors slammed, drawers banged, and occasional sobs, Emma's, I assumed, echoed through the house. Finally, they appeared at the bottom of the stairs, each carrying bags. Emma's mascara was streaked down her face, but her eyes were hard when she looked at me. You'll regret this. She spat venomously. You think you're so perfect with your big house and your fancy job? You'll end up alone and miserable. I didn't even bother responding. There was nothing left to say. I watched from the window as they loaded their bags into Emma's beat-up Corolla. As they drove away, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I immediately turned off my phone, knowing what was coming. The calls, the texts, the family drama. I couldn't deal with any of it right now. When morning came, I turned my phone back on, wincing at the flood of notifications. 37 missed calls, 62 text messages. Voicemails from both sets of parents, from Emma, from Derek. I ignored them all and dialed my lawyer's number instead. Barbara? It's Robin Mitchell. I need to file for divorce. Barbara, bless her, didn't ask for details. Come by the office at 11, we'll get started. I called in to work explaining I needed a personal day. My boss was understanding the Anderson deal had put me in his good graces. I spent 2 hours with Barbara going over the details of the divorce filing, then headed home. I was fumbling with my keys at the front door when I heard voices behind me. I turned to find both sets of parents standing in my driveway. Mom and Dad looked furious, while Martha was crying and George's face was red with anger. How dare you throw them out? Mom demanded as they followed me inside. Your own sister, your husband. You can't just kick a man out of his own house, George added. The house he bought, I'd had enough. I walked to my home office, pulled out the folder of house documents I kept there, and returned to the living room. Actually, I said, spreading the papers on the coffee table. Let me show you something interesting. They gathered around as I pointed to the documents. Look at the buyer's name. Look at where the down payment came from. Look at who's on the mortgage. I watched their faces as realization dawned. This house? Every penny came from me. The car Derek drives? Also mine. He didn't pay for any of it. But he said, Martha stammered. He lied, I said simply. He told everyone he bought the house because he was too insecure to admit his wife was the breadwinner. He's been living off my success while pretending it was his own. That lying little ass, George exploded, his face turning even redder. I raised him better than this. After the in-laws left, Mom and Dad lingered. The documents were still spread across my coffee table, irrefutable proof of my ownership, but somehow that didn't matter to them. Robin, you need to be reasonable about this, Dad said, using his rational parent voice that I remembered from childhood arguments. They're starting a family. A family? I laughed bitterly. You mean my husband and my sister's betrayal baby? Don't be cruel, Mom snapped. That's your niece or nephew you're talking about. Think about the child's future. I stood up, my patience finally exhausted. Let me get this straight. My sister sleeps with my husband, tries to steal my house, and I'm supposed to just hand over everything I've worked for? You've always been selfish, Mom said, her voice trembling. Always thinking about yourself. When you were little, you never shared your toys with Emma. This isn't about toys, Mom. This is my life, my home, my marriage they destroyed. If you don't help your sister, Dad interjected, if you don't share what you have, we'll have no choice but to cut ties with you. I walked to the front door and opened it. Get out. They left, Mom's final words ringing in my ears, "You'll regret this. Your own family." I slammed the door so hard the windows rattled. The divorce proceedings were surprisingly quick. Despite Emma's constant pushing, I heard through mutual friends, Derek never tried to claim any of the property. He knew better. He'd seen all the paperwork, knew every asset was in my name. Fighting would just waste money he didn't have on lawyer fees he couldn't afford. I threw myself into work, taking on more clients, closing bigger deals. The Anderson contract was just the beginning. I redecorated the house, erasing every trace of them. New furniture, new paint, new everything. The master bedroom where I'd found them became my home office. I couldn't sleep there anyway. Through social media, before I blocked them all, I watched their story unfold like a bad soap opera. They got married in a small ceremony at my parents' house. Emma posted endless updates about her pregnancy, playing the role of glowing mother-to-be. She never missed a chance to paint herself as the victim, dropping comments about toxic family members and selfish sisters who abandoned their pregnant siblings. The latest update, shared by a colleague who still followed her, showed her and Derek squeezed into my old childhood bedroom at our parents' house. The caption read, "Making the best of things while cruel people live in luxury. But we have love. And that's what matters." I closed the tab without reading the comments. Let them play happy family in their borrowed bedroom. Let my parents coddle them and pretend their precious Emma did nothing wrong. Let them all live in their bubble of delusion. Me? I'm doing just fine. The house is peaceful now, filled with only my things, my choices, my life. Sometimes silence is better than toxic company, and sometimes the family you're born into isn't the family you need to keep.